Welcome to the Activate God podcast. I am your host, the one and only, the founder of Activate God, Habibat too. And I am super excited to join you today. So, during the first episode, we spoke about ways to navigate through your fears, right? And we gave different examples in regards to sometimes you have to allow the fear of regret to move you, the different types of fears, or particularly two different types of fears. And today specifically, we're going to be talking about 5 ways to reduce your fears. 5 ways to reducing fear. Yes, here we are. So I'm going to talk about the 5 ways, right? And I'm going to I'm going to talk a little bit more about it intentionally. So the first way to reduce fear is 1, surrender. 2, identify what the fear is. 3, affirmations. 4, movement. And 5, repeat, right? So let us start. Okay, so the first step to activate fear or reduce fear. So the first step to reducing your fears is to surrender. Surrender as in letting God guide you. Praying about what the fear is. Praying about why you're fearful. Praying about trusting God and asking for a sign. So you're really literally surrendering to know that you have some type of control, but you really don't really have that much control, right? So surrendering to God and letting God guide you is ultimately the most important, right? Because I think no matter what is it that we do, I think it's important to let God be the one that's guiding us. And without God guiding us, then we may actually be in misalignment with what we're doing. And particularly with fear, the worst thing to do when you are already fearful, when you're navigating through the fears, is for you to be out of alignment with God, right? Because if anything, that can sometimes heighten the fear because you're doing something that you should not necessarily be doing and you're already fearful. So now it may not necessarily work. So that also enhances your fears, which we don't want, right? So the first step is to surrender to God and to just let it go, to breathe through it, to just trust that God is working in your favor in the midst of the fear. Whatever that fear is, I know sometimes for me, my fear is for me to show up as my authentic self in some spaces. My other fear is for me to be seen in some spaces. And I know that makes no sense because here I am starting a podcast where I'm showing my face and showing the people who I am, right? But my ability to navigate through fear is by me showing up with God, by me praying through it, by me just letting go. So the first step, surrender. The second step is to identify what the fear is, right? And of course, this is super connected to the first step because in order for you to surrender, you need to sometimes identify what that thing is. And the truth is, right, I've seen some folks, and I'm talking about identifying what the fear is. So you trying to figure out where did this fear come from and what is the fear? But the only caveat that I have to say about this is sometimes you may not necessarily have the full answer, right? And I think it's super imperative. It's super important to make sure that you are not necessarily stopped by the answer or I hope that you don't wait for the answer for you to fully move through the fear. So I think sometimes we put ourselves in situations where we're trying to figure out the answers and trying to figure out why, how did this connect to my childhood, and why am I fearful? And then after a while, you get you hit a roadblock. And I think it's super important to make sure that you do not fully stop there because sometimes you have to just move without getting the full answers, right? But I think figuring out as much as you can to figure out what the fear is important because sometimes it allows you to identify why did this fear pop up? Is it connected towards something that's irrational? Is it something that's literally irrational? Because there's some fears that I have that I'm girl, why are you scared of that? And full transparency, because this is the podcast where we're going to be talking about everything God, everything life, everything in between, well, which is really God, but also parts of me and what is it that I believe. And my hope is by me being transparent, and the more transparent I am, the more other people can see themselves and the more liberated they become, right? Because I want my test and my testimony to be your testimony in a sense of you not having to go through the same test that I've been through, but also for you to be able to see that like you're not alone in this. And I think oftentimes for many of us, we are usually feeling like we're by ourselves. And it's like, nah, like, I just don't think that people talk about their fears or whatever it is that they're going through enough publicly. Yeah, I don't think people talk about what they're going through as much publicly, which allows people to think that they're going through the same struggles or going through a struggle by themselves. But in truth, you are not alone. You, like, many people are going through the same thing. It's just a matter of like how people are hiding it or how people are navigating through it. And sometimes they navigate through it within their smaller circles, but also sometimes they navigate through it by themselves. So in terms of reducing fear, the 5 steps is identify what the fear is, because it's important to identify what it is. And I know sometimes like my fear is rooted in uncomfortability, it's rooted in doubt, it's rooted in like just like insecurities. And it's like, hey, where did this insecurity come from? And for me, my insecurity sometimes came from like how I talk to myself and like the things that I remember, like the things that I've created in my mind. And I was either through like other people saying negative things about me, or even like what is it that I took on and based on like my past. So I think particularly if you're thinking about reducing fear, right? And say if your fear is being insecure, which is a part of fears, being insecure, and you are scared that you may not necessarily be successful. At the root of that, it's insecurity, but at the root of that, it's like because of like there's some things that you've been told there's something that you believe about yourself that is absolutely not true. So I think it's important to identify like what is it that is happening here, and to figure out like what the next steps are. And I make sure that I am saying all the stuff that I have in my notes because that's important. So identify what the fear is and move through it and like really identify it, but don't be stopped by that, because all of these steps, the 5 steps, are heavily connected. You cannot do one only. You have to like do it all if you're really thinking about and trying to figure out how to reduce the fear. So the next step is affirmations, right? And I put this step is because like sometimes, like especially when we're fearful, we gotta just like pep talk ourselves. We got to like up boost ourselves. And I'm not just talking about like what you say about yourself, but what circle you have around you. Who are the people who are guiding? Who are the people who are affirming you? I know for me, and I'm so grateful that I have such amazing people in my life where during the moments where I'm fearful, doubtful, scared, like there are people who are reminding me about like who I am or what is it that I'm trying to do in this world, whether that is my mother, my father, my community, my sisters, like my brothers, like literally my siblings, like, and my friends. Like I have just so many people. So I'm so grateful for that, because there's been many moments where I have been so fearful. Like I remember even like when I was in grad school, like, and navigating through, well, my first degree, I got 2 master's degrees. I'm very proud of that. So my first degree, like I remember like I was questioning if I would make it, right? And I had a really interesting grad school experience the first time because of how challenging it was, especially during my first year. So navigating through that was really because of my people around me. Like I literally have friends coming to my house to like check up on me. Like they are my friends, Kate, Priscilla, Pre, like y'all, or Kate, Pre, Rachel, y'all are phenomenal people. So I think it's important, and so many other people. Okay, focus. So I think the reality is sometimes you need like people who are pouring into you, who are affirming you, and for you to take a little bit of that affirmations and pour into yourself. Because of course we're not gonna always have moments where we have other people around us to pour into us, which is fine. But I think there's an inkling of you having to pour into yourself and you believe the positive things that are meant to come into your life. You have to believe it in order for you to move through and for you to like break through the fear or to reduce the fear. Because I think sometimes we may not necessarily be able to remove the fear, we just have to reduce it and move through it. And I think the other thing is like reflections, right? Like particularly a part of affirmations and affirming yourself is to reflect upon like where have you been amazing? Like where have you been successful? And there's many moments, if you're looking back at your life, where you've been able to identify like, hey, I moved through this fear at this particular moment and this is the results of it, right? So using that energy in regards to like the things that you reflected upon, and how you moved through the fear, how you did not move through the fear, and what happened when you did not move through the fear. So I think it's just important to reflect upon where you have been and what you've been doing. This way you can like really like affirm yourself to boost you up as you're reducing the fear. The other thing is like, it's okay to make mistakes. Like literally that's literally a part of life, y'all. Like, so I think a part of affirmation just like really believe that like in the midst of your ability to make mistakes, which you will, because life be lifing, and you will absolutely make mistakes, is for you to know that you can bounce back from it and it's okay. Like things will be fine because you are okay. You are okay. You are okay. Did you hear that? You will be fine in the midst of the mistakes and you can bounce back from that mistake. And I also think the reality is, even if mistakes are happening around you, right? Because I think sometimes we cannot necessarily fully control what is happening around us. Is I believe that like, I think God is everywhere. God is omnipresent. God is like everywhere, right? But I think God also allows us to like have free agency around what is it that we do. But of course, to some extent, I believe that like everything is like known and written. But because I know that God is everywhere, I think, and because people have agency, I don't think everything that people do is godly. But I do believe that God restores and recovers and abundantly like makes it clear and pours into the people who have been hurt or harmed because of something that someone else did. All right. So let me repeat that again. I don't believe that everything is godly, but I do believe that God restores and recovers to restore and recover the thing that happened that was not meant to happen in your life. And my prayer to me and to other people is that they believe that they are enough, absolutely enough to know that like in the midst of the things that are happening around them, like they will be fine because God got you. And I also want to say that, like being at peace with being a student is important. That's really part of the affirmation process, right? Like you have to affirm yourself as you are a student, because like we are all students of life. We are all going to be students at some point. So I think it's important to like really like allow yourself to be raised to be a learner, and as you are learning, affirm yourself throughout that process. And also know that like, especially if we're navigating through the fear, like some things is just going to take like time, and it's going to build up as time progresses, right? And then as time progresses, you have this thing that was like, wow, like I built this over time. And that's a part of reducing fear, right? So I think sometimes you have to like start small into the thing, whatever that fearful thing is that you have. And then for you to continue building that muscle. Like it goes back to like building a muscle, right? And going to the gym. Sometimes if you're pulling a muscle and you have like 5 pounds in your hand, and the first day it's hard, the second day is hard, the third day is hard, and then the fourth day, you're like, oh, I can do 20. And well, maybe 20 is a little bit too big, but 10, I can do 10. And like the next week you can do 20, and the next day you can do 30, and the next week, next month you do 40, right? Obviously I don't go to the gym because I don't know what the weights are, but hey, no judgment. We're not judging in this space. I will block you if you judge. I'm kidding. Not really, but once again, and I said this during the first episode, I am open to constructive feedback, and I'm open to people I'm open to people not agreeing with me, but what I will not tolerate is disrespect. We don't do that here at all. But in terms of like the muscle that you're building as time progresses, sometimes you have to like add it with time, and that's the thing that like allows you to be less fearful, and then using that reflections and the moments where you navigated through it to continue to boost you up and to help you become stronger and better. Additionally, it's okay not to be perfect. And sometimes you need to like use the energy of regret to move you. And I've mentioned this during the first episode. Like one of the things that I did not do when I was in grad school, because I just graduated in May, which was like 2 months ago, is that I did not apply to be the graduation speaker. And because I was fearful, because I was doubtful, because I was like, I did not really want it. But over the past 4 years, I've wanted that. And the idea of like me not necessarily trying to be the graduation speaker for my university, NYU, at the time, it made me I of course regret that moment. And of course, like we don't know what would have happened, right? I could have not gotten it. I could have gotten it. But because I know that like I did not do the thing that I wanted to do, now I'm like, how do I now use that energy to move me forward? And that's what we're doing here. We are trying to use the energy of regret, the energy of shame, the energy of guilt to like become a lot more intentional about how we're moving and become more aligned with God and what God has in store for us. So that is the fourth step. And no, that's the third step. That's the third step. And then the fourth step is movement. Y'all, movement is so imperative. And this is, of course, connected to the third step, right? The reflection, the doing. But the movement piece is thinking about like, how do you prepare? Because I think preparation reduces fears. Let me repeat that again. Preparation reduces fears. Preparation reduces fears. I think that is so important to note. And it's important to do the work, do it as you change your mindset. So doing the work, do it will allow you to change your mindset. Because I know for me, to go back, I'm scared, y'all. I'm gonna say this. I am scared of some toilets and some bathrooms. That's like one of like the weirdest fears. And I know, and there's something about like, I'm putting this out on the internet. That's crazy. There's something about like some bathrooms, especially the ones that have like the longer poles where you have to like flush the toilet, or like the poles and like the water thing up there and like the toilet separating. I went to London last year or 2 years ago at this point. Was it last year? I think it was last year. And they had that in one of the restaurants, and I literally could not go in. Like the only way that I can go in is that I had one of my classmates who I barely knew at the time, and I was like, "Hey, I really need to pee. Do you mind like staying by the door, because like I'm literally fearful." And I literally could not even like flush the toilet. I think she had to flush the toilet for me because that's how fearful I was, right? So, why did I bring that story up? We don't know, but it's okay. Yes, I think sometimes movement comes with taking the small steps. So with my fear of bathrooms, I used a friend or a classmate to help me so I can take a small step so I can navigate through it. And then even now, like there's some toilets where I would not have gone into because of my fear, but me taking the small steps has allowed me to like reduce that fear and to become a little bit more comfortable with specific toilets and specific bathrooms. The other thing around movement is tapping into other people, right? I think it's super, super, super imperative to tap into other people as you're thinking about moving through the fear. I think sometimes other people can show you and can guide you, can affirm you, can uplift you, to give you some guidance, some wisdom, to help you move through the fear. Like you don't have to move through fears by yourself. And I think in some societies, America, we oftentimes use ourselves as this thing that we are the folks who are doing like all by ourselves. But like, I don't think successful people are successful because they do it by themselves. I think successful people are successful is because they have a large group of people around them who are supporting them, who are guiding them, who are the folks who are sometimes doing the work as the other person is like the face of the company, right? So you cannot do it by yourself. And if you're reducing fears and if you're navigating through the fears, you have to tap into other people to help you. Yeah. The other thing that I want to mention is shaping your life for success, right? And putting the task/practice you've identified around the things that you're currently doing, right? So what I mean by that, I'm going to repeat that again, right? So shaping your life for success and putting the task, whatever that task is, or practice you've identified around things that you currently do. And what does that look like? It looks like, for one, so for example, I'm sometimes scared to get on camera. Like I've been avoiding getting on camera for too long, a year and a half, right? And I got on a little bit and I got off, and I got on a little bit and I just stayed off. And lately I've been trying to figure out like, how do I overcome this fear? And one of the things that I do now is, rather than me setting up a day to put on makeup, to present myself a particular type of way, how about I just, whenever I go out, the days that I go out that I'm already like all dolled up, after that day, how about I just like show up on camera as I am? Whatever that outfit was like, just show up on camera. And that just like literally eased like a lot of my fears, right? Because I'm already all like created. I'm already like out, like, or the energy of like me being outside is good. And I feel like I do not necessarily have to prepare as much as I would have if I was not outside already. So I think that's important, right? So basically what I'm trying to say is, if you are trying to navigate through fears, make sure that you are already doing something, adding it to something that you're already doing. So let me repeat that again. If you're trying to navigate through your fears, sometimes you have to add it towards something that you're already doing. Yeah, I think that's good enough. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe, share the podcast, share this episode, share the video. Thank you. Yeah, so thinking about like, because in order for you to reduce fear, right, you have to move. Like, it's a part of the process. You have to like literally like do something different to reduce the fear, because that's just literally a part of reducing fear. Like, fear doesn't stop just because you woke up. Like, fear is an act that you have to do to overcome. Like, fear is something that you have to like literally do and move through to help you reduce it. What else is there? We are on a roll today. And like I mentioned before, like using regret as a fuel to move you forward, using guilt as a fuel to move you forward, using shame and resentment as a fuel to move you forward. And I'm sure, similar to me, how like there's some moments in my life where I regret, and I'm sure for you too, there's many moments or some moments in your life where you regret, where you're like, I could have done this and I should have done this, right? So rather than thinking about like, I should have done, could have done, would have done, how about you use that energy to like be like, I can do right now, or I am doing right now, because I don't want to wake up, and I don't want you to wake up one day and look at your life and be like, this is not the life that I want. And if you're actually there now, because there's some areas in my life where I am there, now I'm like, hey, now that I know that I don't want to do this and I don't want to stay in here, how about I move and try to figure out like, how do I get out of this? So I'm praying that you get that energy into you, to move forward. So the fifth step, number five, or is it young folks? Okay, focus. Is to repeat, right? So they're repeating the steps. So this is step 1, surrendering. Step 2, identifying what the fears are. Step 3, affirmation. Step 4, movement. And then step 5 is to repeat. So to go back, right? Because fear is not a one-time thing. Reducing your fear is not a one-time thing. The act of trying to navigate through your fears is not a one-time thing. It is a thing that you have to repeatedly do. And like some days you wake up and it's like so much easier than others, right? But it's a repeated act that you have to like constantly do. And the beauty is, because after a while you're like, oh, this is tiring. I just need a break. And I think it's important to take the breaks. Take your breaks. But I think the other thing is important to be calm in the process of you repeating, right? And to know that like the more you do in terms of like movement and reducing your fears and navigating through it, the easier the fear becomes. Literally, the easier the fear becomes. And I think life sometimes gets complicated and it remains complicated, but the reality is the more you experience life and the more you accept life and the more you're able to understand life, the easier life becomes. And not necessarily because life is getting easier. I think life is getting easy. I think you are understanding life better, which allows life to become easier. Life probably have not shifted. Life became probably a lot more complicated the older we get, right? And I think sometimes you just have to like allow yourself to move through it and accept it so that life becomes easier, or you become easier as you navigate through life. Y'all know what I'm saying. And yeah, let me stop there. I'm gonna stop there for now. But as I usually do, so once again, my name is Habibat. I am the founder, host of Activate God, where I've been posting daily prayers for the past year and a half on different social media platforms. So Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and YouTube. Y'all, it's been a long day, but I'm grateful. So the 4 platforms I've been posting daily prayers. So please continue to share, like, subscribe, comment, and I really, 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 really appreciate the support that I've been getting over the past few years. Yeah, a year and a half. Yeah. So I'm gonna end this podcast episode with a prayer in regards to like how to reduce fear. So, dear God, I thank you. I thank you. I thank you for all that you are doing in our lives. God, I know that you want the best for us, and I ask that you allow us to get the best. I ask that you allow us to live the best life that you have in store for us. I ask that you allow us to move through whatever hindrances that we have, to ultimately live the life that you are calling us to live. I know that there's moments where we will be fearful, doubtful, insecure, questioning ourselves, but I ask that you help us navigate through it. And I ask especially that like as we are navigating through our fears, help remind us to help show us the signs that things will be fine, that we are on the right path, and guide every single step that we take, and guide the people around us so that we are taking literally the right steps along the way. So I know, and I know that there's 5 steps to reducing fears, 5+ steps to reducing fears, and I ask that you help me and all of us navigate through the 5 steps so that once again we are living the life that you are calling us to live. We ask for all these things and more. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God, for everything. Amen, amen, and ashe. Y'all, this has been a fun episode. I really liked it and I enjoyed myself. So once again, my name is Habibat Tisha 2. I am your host for Activate God. And come back in a few weeks because we'll be talking a little bit more about something else. And if you have any topics that you want to talk about, just put in the comments. You are more than welcome to comment, send me a DM, etc., etc. Yeah, so enjoy the rest of your day. You got this. Let's continue to activate God together. Yes, I don't know if I smiled enough for y'all, but yeah, here we are. We are doing this. Life is beautiful. Life was meant to be beautiful, and you deserve beauty. Y'all deserve beauty. So thank you once again. Okay, bye. Episode 2, Activating God. Episode 2, Activate God. Episode 2, Activate God. Episode 2, to activate God. Episode 2, Activating God. Episode 2, Activating God. Episode 2, Activate God. Episode 2, Activating God. Episode 2, Activate God. Episode 2, Activate God. My name is Habibat Tisha 2. My name is Habibat. Habibat Tisha 2. My name is Habibat. Episode 2, Activating God. Episode 2, Activate God. Episode 2, Activating God. Episode 2, Activate God.